And welcome back, guys. Today we're gonna compare these two beauties. Well, we in Italy we say ogni scarafone è bella mamma soia, which means every bug is beautiful for his mother. But other than these stupid things, we're gonna talk about the comparison between the 16 to 80 f4 versus the 18 to 120 f4, both from Fujifilm. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I've been using the 16 to 80 millimeters since day one. I've been using that lens, I've been loving that lens, and this lens is the one that has given me some of the most beautiful photos that I've ever taken, and I could only take them thanks to this lens and the versatility of this lens. Actually, you know what? Let me show you the photos that I took with this lens, and then we'll keep talking. So as you've seen, those pictures speak for themselves. So I'm still in love with the 16 to 80 millimeters for what it is. However, if you followed my review, you know that from a video standpoint, the 16 to 80 is not where it shines. Actually, it doesn't shine that much. Not from an image quality standpoint, but we're gonna get there in a bit. But because of some decisions that Fuji has taken that made this lens not optimal when it comes to video. And that's where the 18 to 120 comes into place. Because this lens, Fujifilm sells it as make movie memories. So it's definitely targeted to videographers. Now, this lens, if this lens is not good for pictures, I'm not gonna take it. I'm not gonna keep it. That's like, of course, this is obvious because I'm still a photographer, but I'm moving more into video, and so this lens becomes important from a video perspective. Now, of course, I have the 18 to 120s just since a month and a half ago, and I didn't travel anywhere to take, and I couldn't even take great pictures. So the pictures that I'm going to show you are there just to testament that I've used this lens, but of course, I don't have 3 years of use and 3 years of portfolio made with this lens, but let's just have a look at it. As you've seen, this lens is no slouch. By the way, at the end of the video, I'm gonna have to decide which one of these two I'm gonna keep and which one of these two I'm gonna sell, because I cannot afford having both. This video is sponsored by myself, my pocket, my wallet, and my credit card, because I bought these lenses with my own money. From a build quality standpoint, these two lenses are very different. Don't get me wrong, they're both good, they're both built good, but the 16-80 feels more substantial in the ends. It's built more like the legacy of Fujifilm lenses that we had in the last 10 years. The 18-120 is a little bit different, but let's start with the 16-80. 16-80 is your classic Fujifilm lens. Aperture ring over here, zooming ring over here, and focusing ring over here with a focus by wire. You've seen the lens extends while I'm zooming. We're gonna get back to it because there's something to say about it. The 18-120 on the other hand doesn't have any aperture ring. Not good, Fuji, not good. I understand why, but not good. And then it has your focusing ring, again, focused by wire, your zooming ring, which doesn't have hard stops. Hold that thought. This rocker over here that has a function, and these two buttons over here that have the same function of the rocker or of the zoom ring, which basically means that this is a powered zoom lens. You don't have a direct connection with the zoom. While you rotate the ring, or you move the rocker, or you press the buttons, there are motors that move the zoom inside the lens. The zoom, as you see, the lens does not extend, nothing moves when you're zooming or focusing on this lens. On the contrary of this. So they're different. And this lens, the 18-120, seems a little bit hollow. When you're touching it, it doesn't give you the same feeling that the 16-80 does. It feels like the 16-80 is a more rugged lens compared to the 18-120. However, they're both weather sealed, they're both weather resistant. They share the same 72 millimeters front filter, although as you can see, one lens, the 16-80, has all the writings over here. The 18-120 does not, I guess, because probably knowing that it's a video-centric lens, the designer knew that probably gonna have an ND filter on front, and you don't want to have reflections of what's written in the front of the lens. Again, I'm just guessing, I don't know. From a weight standpoint, they weigh pretty much the same. The 16-80 weighs 20 grams less than this 18-120, but in the hands, it feels heavier. This is probably because being shorter, the weight is more concentrated in one spot. This one distributes the weight better. It's just an assumption. And also, something to consider is that this lens being shorter when it's not in use makes it a lot easier to find a spot in your backpack or in your bag or whatever. One major difference between the two is the 16-80 has stabilization, optical stabilization. The 18-120 does not and needs to rely on the stabilization coming from the camera. One little thing to notice, you see the 16-80 extends while it's zoomed, but if I remove my finger from the zooming ring, this is what happens. It goes down, and even if I do this tends to go down as well. This is an issue when it comes to photography and even videography, because if you're shooting all the way down and you're not at 80 millimeters, meaning you're not extended to its maximum extent, then the lens is gonna tend to, because of gravity, is gonna tend to pull, you see? And it's gonna ruin your shot, because of course it's not gonna work. Same thing if you're shooting up, it goes down like that. With the 18-120, this does not happen because everything is motorized, so nothing goes up or down because of gravity. Speaking of image quality, of course, the 16-80 is way better in the range that goes between 16 and 18 millimeters. Guess what? The 18 to 120 does not have that focal range. So they're not comparable in that range. And the 16 to 80 is really good in that range. At the same time, the 18 to 120 is way better than the 16 to 80 when you go between 80 and 120, because guess what? 16 to 80 doesn't go there. So the only comparison we can do is between in the focal range that overlaps. And I'm gonna get you the big picture. I'm not gonna show you gazillion amount of pictures that are boring with crispness and sharpness and all of that. From a sharpness standpoint, on a 40 megapixel sensor, throughout the zooming range, the 18 to 120 is better in the center. It's crisper, is more sharp, it resolves better in the center. And while you stop down, the difference, of course, shrinks. In the corners, the 18 to 120 is softer compared to the 16 to 80 when you're at 18. But other than that, everything is pretty much comparable. So overall, from a sharpness standpoint, the center is basically better throughout the zooming range for the 18 to 120, while corners are more similar, and sometimes the 16 to 80 does a little bit better. The 18 to 120, as you zoom in, so you go beyond 80 millimeters, is still really good up until 110. When you get to 120, the resolution drops a little bit, but not by a huge margin. I've seen reports of issues at the maximum zooming range. I have an idea for that, but it's coming in just a little bit. For all the rest, so from a sharpness standpoint, they're comparable, but the 18 to 120 is a little bit better on a 40 megapixel sensor. For all the rest, I could not spot visible difference when it comes to sun, stars, chromatic aberrations, contrast, bokeh. They're very similar. It's really hard to tell any difference between the two. The only difference that I could see, but just comparing them one against each other, was the warmth. The 18 to 120 is a little bit colder than the 16 to 80. But again, if you're not shooting them side by side, you will never spot the difference. Considering that I was really happy with the 16 to 80 for a long time, knowing that the 18 to 120, despite having a longer range, is there or even better, that's quite an achievement. I'm really happy to shoot with the both of them. One noticeable difference is the fact that the 16 to 80 can go closer to your subject, so you can focus a little bit closer. This gives you a little bit of a magnification more compared to 16 to the 18 to 120. But at the same time, the 18 to 120 can zoom in more. And so despite being placed a little bit more distantly, it kind of makes up for it, although the magnification is still better in the 16 to 80 millimeters. When it comes to autofocusing, both lenses are very silent and very fast. Sometimes you just don't know if the lens is even focused just because it's blazing fast. The 18 to 120 has the new linear motors, the 16 to 80 does not, but I couldn't spot that many differences. The only difference I could see is that the 18 to 120 seems to be a little bit smoother when it reaches the subject, but it's just trying to find something, is being very nitpicky here, because honestly, differences are very negligible. If you remember, in my XH2S video, I reported that I had focusing issues at a wedding anniversary ceremony with the 16 to 80 and the XH2S. I have never had that issue anywhere else, and it's been hard to just produce it again, just to understand why that was. But I'm happy to report that I was shooting a children event with the 18 to 120, and those issues are completely gone with this lens. Now, of course, I was shooting with this lens only those more static scenes because it was very dark. I was using the flash, so I wasn't chasing kids with this lens, because being F4 would be impossible. I would need to use extremely high ISO. I was using the 3314 to do that. But for pose shots and all of that, same situation as this. I didn't have any issue with the 18 to 120. However, in the real world, I also had issues with the 18 to 120 trying to focus at infinity at 120 millimeters. I've seen a report of people saying that the lens is not sharp at all when zoomed in at 120 millimeters, and I was about to confirm that when I started realizing that it wasn't a sharpness issue, it is more a focusing issue. The lens seems not to be able to focus at infinity when you're shooting at infinity. It tends to focus slightly differently, and that means that the picture seems in focus when you're shooting, but then when you zoom in, it's not focused enough. I tried a couple of times and I could finally get one that shows me that the lens is sharp. It's definitely sharp even at 120, but we have focusing issues. I used it more for this on the XH2. I'll test it again with the XH2S and I'll let you know. But this is something that I have to report, and it's been bugging my mind because it's been happening quite continuously. So, but even with the XH2S, it was doing the same thing. So I think it's more of a lens issue than a camera issue. But again, you needed to know. And this also affects video, but we're going to talk about it in a second when we talk about video. Now, of course, video is where these two lenses sets apart one from each other the most, because as I said, the X16 to 80 cannot be used while recording, like you cannot zoom while recording, and even the stabilization tends to fight you. It does something stupid, like when you're panning, it's like, no, I have to hold on that, and then, oh shit, he's moving forward, and then it catches up, and then it holds on, and then, oh shit, it moves forward, and it keeps doing that jittery thing that it's really annoying. These two things are very annoying when it comes to video with this lens. Other than that, of course, the image quality is great. The fact that you can focus really close helps, and this lens for a static video production can do perfectly fine. Although when you're starting to shoot handheld, it starts to fight you and you cannot zoom while recording. With this one, it's completely opposite. It doesn't have any stabilization, so it doesn't fight you. It only uses the camera IBIS, and the camera IBIS does a lot better with this lens than the combination of the 16 to 80 and the same camera. I also found that stabilizing in post what comes out of this combination, 18 to 120 and XH2S mostly, is easier to stabilize than stabilizing in post what comes out of the 16 to 80. So of course the 18 to 120 has a reason to exist because of video, the fact that it's power zoom, the fact that you can zoom in and out in an automatic way. You just long press one of these buttons and the lens starts to zoom until it reaches its limit, or zooming in or zooming out. It's something really nice. However, for all these good things that this lens does with video, there's two issues. One, they already reported, is as you zoom out, there's two steps where the image gets darker. At 80 millimeters, it gets a visible step down when it comes to exposure, and then at 25, I guess, another one down. You're seeing it right now, and I was shooting all manual, so it's not that I was adjusting something. It was all manual, and the lens does this. This, I think, cannot be fixed with a firmware update. I guess it's an optical thing, and that's a bummer. The other thing that I noticed is that it is connected to the focusing, the issue that I already reported. What you tend to do with a lens like this is, like, you have your wide scene, you focus, and then you start zooming in. Now that you can, you start zooming in to give importance to your subject. Most of the time when you do that, the lens seems to go out of focus. Now, it's not that the lens shifts focus. To me, what happens is that when you're wide, you probably have 8 or something like that, the depth of field is so wide that the lens probably focuses a little bit beyond infinity or a little bit before infinity, and the lens seems sharp anyways. As you zoom in, however, the depth of field starts to shrink and it starts to show that your target was not in focus as you'd expect. What I did then was that I then focused all the way in, then zoomed all the way in, focused at infinity, zoomed back, everything was in focus, zoomed back in, and everything was still in focus. So the lens can focus at infinity, it can keep the focus, it doesn't shift. That's something that needs to be noticed. But there's some focusing issues when trying to focus at infinity with this lens. And it's only happened with this lens as far as I know. But of course, this is the only lens that allows you to even think about it. So it may be an issue with the camera. I'll keep you updated with it. As of now, this is the issues that I'm having with this lens. However, since the comparison is with the 16 to 80, the 18 to 120 is still a better option when it comes to video. In conclusion, between these two, I am going to sell my trusted and beloved 16 to 80 millimeters. Why? Because I'm getting more and more and more into video, and video is starting to become an important part of what I do. And having a lens that is well suited for video, but it's also great when it comes to photography, it's a win-win for me. I will miss those wide millimeters, the range between 16 and 18. I'm gonna miss that. They came in really useful a lot of times, but it's a game of trade-offs. You lose something, you gain something. I get more reach, I get more features that are good for video without losing the quality in photography. Now, this is my choice, what works best for me. Is it something that works for you as well? It depends. If you're mostly a photographer, if you're a video shooter that doesn't use the zooming or shoots everything on a tripod, the 16 to 80 is still a great lens. And it can perform really good on the XH2, so on the 40 megapixel sensor. Now I understand even less why Fuji didn't include the 16 to 80 in the good lenses list, despite selling this lens in the kit with the XH2. The lens, like if you're scared about the fact that the lens doesn't perform, don't be scared. This lens can perform. If you want to buy the kit with no issues at all. You're not going to have any sharpness issue with this lens. If you're not shooting on a 40 megapixel sensor, the differences in sharpness is going to be even less. And so unless you really need the video capabilities of the 18 to 120, you're probably better off going with the 16 to 80 millimeters because you can get a used copy fairly cheap, basically half the price of the 18 to 120. And if the range works best for you, 16 to 80 rather than 18 to 120, I would go with the 16 to 80 without any specific issue. Now, I hope all of this conversation helped you in your decision as to whether to go with one or the other, if you need to buy one or the other, if you don't want to buy any of those. I hope this video helped you. I have more videos coming. I hope next week to bring you my first impressions of the Tamron 18 to 300 millimeters that I just bought, because I'm curious. Again, I will sell the 16 to 80, but I'm gonna keep updating you on the 18 to 120. I will have a comparison between the XH2 and the XH2S image quality. I will have a lot more stuff coming. I have an XT5 video coming. I have a lot of stuff. So think about subscribing. Let me know in the comments below if I missed something in this review, if there's something more that you wanna know. Leave me a thumbs up if you like the video. And I'm here. Contact me on Instagram, my 3 accounts that I have. I'm here. I'm trying to help everybody that try to contact me. So don't be shy. Let me know in the comments what you think. I think that's it for today. This video was very long. I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.